All right, let's talk about special education. We're going to give you a clear roadmap for a system that, let's face it, can feel like a real puzzle. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, or you're just trying to figure this all out, we are going to break it down for you, one simple step at a time.
And yeah, let's just be real for a second. It can be so overwhelming. The source material really nails it when it says it feels like a maze. If that sounds familiar, trust me, you're in exactly the right place. We're about to hand you the map.
And you are so not alone on this journey. I mean, look at this number. 7.5 million students in the US get special education services. That's huge. It's something like 15% of all kids in public school. So this is a massive, incredibly important part of our education system.
So, here's our game plan for today. Think of it as our map. First, we'll get the lay of the land. We'll call that the special ed maze. Then, we've got to find out where it all begins. That's finding the starting line. After that, we'll run through the evaluation gauntlet, get our hands on the IEP roadmap, and, super important, we'll make sure you know your rights, your voice. Ready? Let's dive in.
All right, first up, the special education maze. Look, any complex system has rules, right? And for special ed in the US, the main rule book is a really powerful federal law.
And that law is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. You're going to hear that acronym a lot. This thing is the absolute bedrock. Every single public school in every state has to follow IDEA. It's the law that makes sure every eligible student gets the help they need.
Now, IDEA is built on these 6 core principles, and these are basically your non-negotiable rights, okay? They guarantee stuff like a free, appropriate public education. You'll hear that called FAPE. They make sure kids are educated with their peers as much as possible. That's the Least Restrictive Environment, or LRE. They promise a fair evaluation and that parents get to participate. And all of this comes together to create that legally binding IEP. And it's all protected by something called procedural safeguards. These aren't just good ideas, folks. This is the law.
Okay, so where does this whole journey actually kick off? Let's talk about finding the starting line. And you might be surprised to learn that it's not always the parent who has to get the ball rolling.
Nope. It starts with this legal requirement called child find. This means schools have to proactively go out and find, identify, and evaluate kids who might need services. They can't just sit back and wait for a parent to ask. It's their job, their legal duty to be on the lookout.
So what does that actually mean for you? Well, if you're a teacher, it means you have an obligation to refer a student who's still struggling even after you've tried different interventions. If you're a parent, it means you have the right to ask for an evaluation anytime. But here's the absolute key takeaway, the pro tip from our source. Always make that request in writing. An email works perfectly. Why? Because it creates a paper trail and it officially starts those legal timelines we're going to talk about.
Now, you might hear the school talk about RTI or MTSS before they do a formal evaluation. This is basically a tiered system of support that's supposed to help all struggling kids. Tier 1 is for everybody, Tier 2 is for small groups who need a little extra help, and Tier 3 is for that really intensive one-on-one support. It's a good thing, it's designed to help, but, and this is a big but, the school cannot use this process to delay or deny your written request for an evaluation. Your right to request an evaluation trumps this process.
Okay, so once that written request is in and you've given consent, we enter the next phase, the evaluation gauntlet. This is really the fact-finding mission. This is where we figure out, does this student have a disability that's actually getting in the way of their learning?
This gives you that bird's eye view of the whole process, right? It all kicks off with the referral. Then the school needs your consent. Then comes the actual evaluation. Then the team determines eligibility. And if they're eligible, you get the IEP. So let's look at the timeline for that evaluation part. And yeah, that evaluation, it's on a timer. There is a hard deadline. Federal law says the school has a maximum of 60 calendar days, not school days, calendar days, from the moment you sign that consent form to get the evaluation done. This is a super important protection. It's there to make sure kids don't get stuck waiting forever for help.
So what's really important to understand here is that a full evaluation is, well, it's full. It's not just one test. The team has to look at everything. Grades, school records, standardized tests, but also observations of your kid in the classroom and interviews with you, the parents, and their teachers. IDEA is crystal clear on this. No single test or score can be the only reason to decide if a child is eligible. Okay, so after they've gathered all that information, the team gets together to answer 2 crucial questions. Question 1, does the student have a disability that fits into one of the 13 categories listed under IDEA? And question 2,
Is that disability making it hard for them to succeed in school, so much so that they need specially designed instruction? The answer to both of those has to be yes for a student to qualify. This is really key. Just having a doctor's diagnosis isn't enough on its own.
And if the answer to both of those questions is yes, well, that's when we get to the whole point of this process, the IEP. This is your child's personalized roadmap for success in school.
An IEP, or Individualized Education Program, isn't just a friendly plan. I mean, it is a plan, but it's also a legally binding contract. It's a document that spells out exactly what services, supports, and goals the school district will provide for your child. It's a planning tool, sure, but it's also an accountability tool.
And every IEP has to include certain things. It has to start with where the student is right now, their present levels of performance, or PLIF. We'll get to that in a sec. From there, it has to lay out measurable annual goals, list all the special ed services and accommodations, and, this is really important for older kids, it has to include a plan for what happens after high school.
Okay, this slide is perfect because it shows you exactly what makes an IEP strong versus what makes it weak. It all starts with that present level statement, the PLAFP. Look at the difference. Johnny reads at a second grade level. Okay, that's pretty vague, right? But look at the high quality version. It uses specific data from a real test. It tells you exactly where he is, the 8th percentile, and it explains the impact, that it's affecting his comprehension. See? That's the kind of data that leads to good, meaningful goals.
And that brings us to our last section. And honestly, this might be the most important one. Knowing the process is great, but knowing your rights, that's what makes you a true equal partner in all of this.
IDEA gives parents what are called procedural safeguards, and they are incredibly powerful. This means you have the right to get written notice before the school changes anything, you have the right to see every single one of your child's records, you even have the right to ask for an independent educational evaluation, that's an IEE, paid for by the public if you don't agree with what the school's evaluation found. These protections, they have real teeth.
And really, when you strip it all away, all the acronyms, all the deadlines, all the legal jargon, it all comes down to something really simple and powerful. It comes down to a core belief that every single child, no matter what, deserves an education that helps them learn and grow.
Look, the special education system is complicated, no doubt about it, but it's not impossible to navigate. It's a system that was built to make sure no child gets left behind. So we'll leave you with this one simple question. Now that you have the map, what's your first step?